I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside. It's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off-road. The guy managed the group. He was like, what are you doing in this beautiful car? I'm like, I'm going off-road. He's like, are you sure? Because you can use one of ours. And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability, as well as its robust interior, are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at landroverusa.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show on the Choose Yourself Network. Today on the James Altucher Show.
If I have an instinct on something, I don't get accountants to come and spend days and days analyzing. For instance, when I started Virgin Atlantic, I never got an accounting firm in to see whether or not we'd make money or lose money. Instinctively, any firm of accountants would say, you're mad, you're running a record company, there's no way you can make a success out of the airline business, especially where you've hardly got any money to start it. And even our big rival, British Airways, said, that I was too old to rock and roll, too young to fly, you'll be bankrupt within 12 months. And 35 years later, Virgin Atlantic is still going strong.
How did you do it? How did you convince Boeing to essentially lend you a plane? If you want to be mentally tougher, be tougher. Wake up earlier and make luck happen. Get discipline, get freedom. Jocko Willink, one of my favorite people in the world, will show you how with his new book, Discipline Equals Freedom. I have the book. I highly recommend this. It's excellent. Discipline Equals Freedom by Jocko Willink. Get it wherever books are sold from St. Martin's Press. FreshBooks is excited to announce the launch of an all-new version of their cloud accounting software to help the self-employed. Create and send professional-looking invoices in less than 30 seconds. Set up online payments with just a couple of clicks and get paid up to 4 times faster. FreshBooks is offering a 30-day unrestricted free trial at freshbooks.com/James and enter the James Altucher Show in the How Did You Hear About Us section. That's freshbooks.com/James. Hey, this is James.
Hi, James. It's Helen with Richard.
Okay, so should we get started?
Yeah, if we could, that would be great.
Okay.
I'll pass you over to Richard now. Thank you.
Hi.
Hey, Richard Branson, thanks so much for coming on the show. And thanks also for writing such an excellent new book, Finding My Virginity, the New Autobiography. By the way, I love that subtitle.
Well, thank you very much for your kind words. Losing my virginity was a lot of fun, and over the last 20 years, we decided it was time for a new follow-on. And I suppose, having come up with the name Virgin, it gives me lots of opportunity to do lots of puns over the years. So,
I mean, we're going to discuss that because obviously you're a marketing genius, and I'm sure it even starts before the word virgin. But you mentioned once, to be a real entrepreneur, you always have to be looking forward. The moment you rest on your laurels is the moment your competition overtakes you. And I really find that to be the essence of this book, is that you're constantly reinventing yourself in ways that are surprising, probably even to yourself.
yeah, if I hadn't reinvented myself, I wouldn't be in business 50 years after our first venture. So, one of our first ventures was the music business, and music stores, music mail order. And I remember people saying when we went from that into the airline business, did he not learn that sticking to your onions is the right thing to do? You don't go shooting off in a different area. But of course, if we had stuck with our onions, the music stores have disappeared, and life moves on. So so I love a challenge. I see opportunities everywhere. I see I see situations where I feel we can do things better, and I like to jump in with open feet and as I said, just keep reinventing ourselves in the process.
And I want to ask about that because I feel, obviously, if people want to read about all your many businesses and the challenges and how you started each one, and interwoven with your philanthropic efforts, which has been in the billions, interwoven with your many stories of family and how it's all connected. This book is excellent. Everyone should read it. But I feel the essence of this book is about creativity and happiness. And it's like you just said, you look everywhere for opportunities. I'm going to question that. I think you look everywhere for where there's problems and easy solutions that nobody else has thought of. So I feel like everything you look at, you try to find the problem.
Yeah, I think you put it much better than I could have done. I think what is a business? A business is simply coming up with an idea that's going to make people's lives better. And if I see a situation where people's lives are not as good as they could be, then using the Virgin brand, we'll jump in and trying to improve people's lives. And we've done that, obviously in quite a lot of different areas.
You run over. There's over 400 businesses under the Virgin brand. Yeah,
and what I've tried to avoid in this book is make it a sort of chronological sort of autobiography of everything that's gone on. I've just tried to, make it a good read, because I think if you're going to read a book, you want to be gripped by it, and so I've taken some good stories, and stories is a wonderful way of illustrating things, and try to write really some of the better stories of the last 20 years, and fortunately, we've had plenty of good stories to tell.
And I think at heart, you're a storyteller, and that shows up a lot in the marketing behind almost every single business you do. And I'm going to get to that, but I wanna hold on to a second this notion of creativity, because it's not just seeing a problem, it's also solving a problem. And I feel you have a very unique way that's particular to you for solving a problem. You don't build solutions from scratch. You basically remove obstacles as opposed to building solutions. And then or somehow it meets in the middle. I don't know if I'm describing it correctly, but maybe you can elaborate and give an example.
Yeah. So
like Virgin Mobile was a great way. You removed obstacles by basically borrowing resources from other companies, both financial and bandwidth and so on. And that's how you build companies, I think, very quickly.
Yeah, with Virgin Mobile, we decided, let's not build a whole infrastructure. Let's use the fact we have a great brand, we're great at marketing, to piggyback on somebody else's infrastructure. And in that way, Virgin Mobile very quickly got born on a global basis. We tell one court case that the person who owned the infrastructure decided to try to steal the company off us, and we ended up taking them to court, and And instead of them being able to steal the company off us for $1, the judge awarded the company to us for $1. So, so that anyway, it was.
And they still did Deutsche Telekom then the very next day called you and said, let's do a deal.
Yeah, because anyway, they were pragmatic in the end, so they attempted to behave abysmally, and it backfired. But in the end, we ended up friends.
And I think Virgin Mobile is a good example too of you using creativity to say, oh, there's friction in the process of signing up for a cell phone contract. There's all these contracts and fees and extra fees and limitations.
Yeah.
And you took the consumer view and said, oh, if I'm a consumer, this is the creative way I would like to have a phone. And then you basically used every resource you could find rather than building from scratch to solve that core problem. You always stayed focused on the problem.
Yeah, I mean, our slogan was "What you see is what you get," and I think that sums up Virgin completely. In that, if you, I'm dyslexic, so I like to simplify everything, make sure that we have nothing hidden underneath the mattress, and literally what you see is what you get when you deal with the Virgin company, and that doesn't apply to a lot of companies. And I think the very fact that I am dyslexic, I'd simplify our advertising. I make everything very clear and open, and I think that people have appreciated that over the years.
Do you think I hadn't thought of this before, but do you think dyslexia helps kickstart creativity because you always have to look at things a little bit differently than everybody else does?
Completely. I think that dyslexics are great delegators because we're not the best at doing everything ourselves, and a lot of people who think they can do everything themselves are not good delegators. So I've managed to get tremendous people around me, give them a lot of freedom to get out there and do good things, and equally to make mistakes. We're good at, I think, focusing in on issues very quickly, and we're good at sort of leaving issues that are not that important on one side. So I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs who are dyslexic.
It seems like a very special skill you have is to figure out maybe 1,000 potential solutions to obstacles and then pick the right ones that work for you. Because you've even said in the past, it's easy to find reasons not to do something. What's an example where you think you focus on the right issues very quickly?
If I have an instinct on something, I don't get accountants to come and spend days and days analyzing. For instance, when I started Virgin Atlantic, I never got an accounting firm in to see whether or not we'd make money or lose money, because I knew that one accounting firm most likely would come in and give me every reason why we shouldn't do it. Another accounting firm, based on the same figures, could come in and give me every reason why I should do it. I just know that instinctively, if the airline business is shite, and they don't look after you and they don't entertain you, and the people who work for it are not happy, that if I bring in an airline into America, or if I bring an airline into Australia, or if I bring an airline into Britain, that if more people like it than don't like it, that we have a business, and that at the end of the year we'll be able to pay the bills, and that has worked in all three airlines. So, but instinctively, any firm of accountant would say you're mad. You're running a record company. There's no way you can make a success out of the airline business, especially where you've hardly got any money to start it. Leave that to the guys that know about airlines. And even our big rival, British Airways, said that I was too old to rock and roll, too young to fly. You'll be bankrupt within 12 months. And 35 years later, Virgin Atlantic is still going strong.
So again, it's sort of like you saw this problem that air travel wasn't as good and convenient as you felt it should be. And it's not like you suddenly bought a fleet of planes and spent billions of dollars. Like, you kind of figured out, again, use your creativity, figure out simple ways to start something you could call an airline. And, How did you do it? How did you convince Boeing to basically, essentially lend you a plane?
Well, I rang them up and
Well, like I wouldn't be able to do that, for instance.
I had a record company. I rang them up and I said, "This is Richard Branson. I didn't say I was 27 years old, but I was. I wonder whether you have any secondhand 747s for sale." And the guy at the other end said, "Who did you say you were?" I said, "I'm Richard Branson. I have a record company called Virgin Records, but they've got the Rolling Stones and Janet Jackson and Sex Pistols and lots of great bands. But I'm fed up flying on other people's airlines, and I'd like to create the kind of airline that I'd like to fly on." And somehow I managed to hit a little something in this guy's guy called R.J. Wilson's. He was fed up selling planes to British Airways. There was no competitor to British Airways, so they always had him over a barrel. So he said to me, "Look, I would love to see an alternative to British Airways in Britain. I will come along and see you." But he also said that with a name like Virgin, nobody would fly on an airline called Virgin because they'd all assume that it would never go the whole way. So, but anyway, he came along anyway, and we kept the name Virgin. He gave us our first second-hand 747. I did a deal that if it didn't work out, I could hand the plane back to him at the end of 12 months. As it was at the end of 12 months, we took 2 more 747s off him because people love Virgin Atlantic, and Virgin was born.
Who gives somebody a plane and says, if it doesn't work, you'll just give it back to us?
I think, look, what you have an advantage when you're young and enthusiastic and you believe passionately in what you're doing. You can convince people. And I'd left school at 15. I'd started a magazine to campaign against the Vietnamese War. I passionately thought the war was an unjust war. It was killing and maiming thousands of people.
Yes.
And so, ever since then, I've gone into things because I feel passionately about them. And I suppose I've been used to, persuading people into my way of thinking. So somehow or another, I managed to persuade him.
There's 2 things there. One is, and you've said this in the past, age isn't as important as long as you're surrounded by people you love, doing things you passionately believe in. And that applies directly to what you just said just now. And I think if someone's listening to this, if they're not 27, if they're 54 and they're trying to reinvent their lives, or they're 36 or they're 90, how does someone reinvigorate so they feel that youth and passion again?
Oh, look, I just think all of us have got to live life to its full. And you don't necessarily have to start businesses, but whatever you're doing in life, just throw yourself wholeheartedly into it. I mean, the first thing I think you should do, if you want to live your life again, is get yourself fit. So, if you've let yourself get run down a bit, I mean, the helpings of food that you get in America are all 2 times too big. So, get out there, get active, get yourself healthy. I mean, I play a hard game of tennis every morning and every evening against somebody who's better than me, because I love to play tennis. So try to do something you enjoy to get yourself fit. I kite surf, before the hurricane, I was lucky enough to live on an island and get out there and kite and keep fit. If you're fit and healthy, everything else flows from that. And if you can get the endorphins from being fit and healthy, mean that you can go out there and achieve anything. And then if you've got a job that's a bit boring, get in there and start loving it. Start being concerned about other people at the workplace. Start caring for other people. Start taking an interest in other people. Start finding people who've got problems in the office place and help them. And try to reinvent yourself at what you're doing, and then maybe you'll see opportunities whereby you might be able to start your own thing. You might see a gap in the market where things are not being done well, and then you've got these. You can start finding a really great team of people to help you, So it may sound a bit easier said than done, but just if people try that, it may be useful advice anyway.
The hard part, I think, in what you said might be in the finding people to help you, because I think delegation is something you do extremely well. But I mean, what's a bad story of delegation that you've had to kind of unravel?
Look, most business people are not good delegators, and the best bit of advice I can give to any young person who's starting a business, or any young person who's running a department in a big company, or running a small department, is find someone who's better than yourself, put yourself out of business, put them in position to run what you're running, and then free yourself up to think about the bigger picture. And people who manage to do that always come back to me a year later and say, "You've transformed my life by delegating. I've had a better personal life. I've been able to look after myself. I've been able to think about the bigger picture. I've been able to move myself forward into new areas, and my life has been transformed." People who try to do everything themselves get ill. They don't look after themselves. The company suffers. They get scratchy with other people, and it's counterproductive. And so everybody can try to just try to delegate a little bit more and trust other people more.
Do you think people are afraid of, like what you first said was delegate so you could put yourself out of business? Do you think people have a kind of almost scarcity complex that if they put themselves out of business, then that's it, they're done?
Well, I'm sure that some people have that fear, but actually quite the reverse happens. I mean, just the fact that you've delegated well frees you up to do extraordinary things. If you just want to carry on doing all the mundane things yourself, you can carry on doing that forever. But be willing to take the risk of completely putting yourself out of business, but actually don't completely put yourself out of business. Give yourself a position to be able to think bigger than you're currently thinking.
It strikes me with all of this, like with delegation, with persuasion, like your conversation with Boeing, a lot of this has to do with you providing a motivating vision to the people around you. And that involves storytelling. Like you must have told a very persuasive story to the people at Boeing, or a persuasive story to the people who manage your businesses. It seems you build this vision of how you're going to solve problems and help people, and that's what you use to persuade.
Look, I think telling stories is, you've got to get a picture into people's minds. And I mean, for instance, PowerPoints, I can think of nothing worse. That's the worst way of telling a story. You use pictures, use illustrations, use videos to get your message across, and use your own storytelling to get a message across. Throw in a sense of humor as well. I think when I told Boeing that, the day before I'd been trying to get to see a beautiful lady, and the plane I was trying to get to see her on had decided to be cancelled. They didn't have enough passengers, so they cancelled it, and I'd had to go and hire another plane and borrow a blackboard and fill up that plane with all the passengers who had been bumped. The guy roared with laughter. So I got his year. So don't take yourself too seriously. Be willing to tell a story or two as well.
Well, it's not just telling a story. You did something you told a story about. So you needed to get a plane to meet a lady. It wasn't like you were just yelling and complaining to Boeing. You actually solved your problem and then had a story to tell. You're a doer, obviously. I
mean, I've been lucky. Look, once you've, like my secretary did it herself the other day. She had exactly the same problem, and she learned from what I did, and she went and hired a plane and filled it up with using a blackboard. Just this was 35 years later. So I think once you've done it once, you suddenly realize. My slogan is "Screw it, just do it." I mean, why not just try these things? Go above your comfort level, and you're going to surprise yourself. And you may fall flat in your face, but you'll have fun falling flat in your face. And I've got 4 grandkids, under 2. When they fall flat on their face, they pick themselves up again and they fall flat on their face, and ultimately they end up walking.
And speaking of which, and again, this is related to your storytelling ability often involves you doing something, often to launch a new company or a new brand. Like, for instance, jumping off the roof of a hotel casino is not something the average CEO does in a marketing plan, but you did it. You sort of fell flat on your face, but it works.
Yep. I mean, I jumped off the Palms Hotel in Las Vegas. The old saying about by the seat of your pants. I hit my jeans, my bottom, going down 100 miles an hour halfway down, and ended up dangling like a rag doll with blood pouring from my bum into the party of people who were waiting for me at 100 floors below. But I made a grand entrance, and Virgin America's Las Vegas, San Francisco route was born. So yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of near shaves.
Yeah, like how many times? This is just off the cuff, but how many times has blood been the result of you doing a marketing campaign?
Well, I think at the end of the book, I've talked about my 75 lives where
yes,
I came close, but I've been lucky. I've survived them, and it has helped make the Virgin brand, the global brand, made it more sexy and exciting than a brand like British Airways or any of the people we compete with, and I've had a lot of fun in the process, even if I've spilled a bit of blood in it. But it makes for a much better book. So people who go out to read Finding My Virginity, I think it's a lot more exciting than if I was a dull businessman who sipped sherry and stood in the corner of the room with his fellow directors telling a tale.
And I think that's so important, though, that I think it's the difference between the Virgin brand and many other businesses is that you're doing these things. Like you don't just say, "Hey, let's drive a tank down Fifth Avenue." You personally drove the tank down Fifth Avenue. Again, I feel doing is an important part of the creative process for you for storytelling.
100%. No, I love it. I love a challenge. I love being out front myself. Whether it's ballooning around the world or kite surfing across the English Channel or climbing Mont Blanc or whatever it is. If next year I'll definitely be the first to go to space on Virgin Galactic. I would hate to have to watch other people do it. I've got to be doing it myself, or doing it with my children now who've just become delightful adults, and we do a lot of these things together.
Let's stop to take a quick break. We'll be right back. People look for the shortcut, the hack. But the shortcut is a lie. And the hack will never get you there. Believe me, because I try it all the time. It does not work. If you want to take the easy road, it won't take you to where you want to be. There is no easy way. There is only one way, the way of discipline. Read Discipline Equals Freedom by Jocko Willink. Jocko is a decorated Navy SEAL, co-author of the #1 New York Times bestseller Extreme Ownership, and creator of the #1 iTunes business podcast, the Jocko Podcast. And probably the biggest thing he's ever done in his life, the most exciting thing he's ever done in his life, has been a podcast guest on the James Altucher Show. His new book, Discipline Equals Freedom, delivers strategies and tactics for conquering weakness, procrastination, and fear. Find your will, find your discipline, and you will find your freedom. Discipline Equals Freedom. Get after it with Jocko Willink. Discipline Equals Freedom is available wherever books are sold, from St. Martin's Press. This happens in every business I've ever started or been involved with. Racing against the clock to wrap up projects, prepping for meetings later in the afternoon, all the while trying to tackle a mountain of paperwork. Well, welcome to life as a freelancer. FreshBooks is excited to announce the launch of an all-new version of their cloud accounting software to help the self-employed. It's redesigned from the ground up and custom-built for the way you work, Get ready for the simplest way to be more productive, organized, and get paid quickly. Create and send professional-looking invoices in less than 30 seconds. Set up online payments with just a couple of clicks and get paid up to 4 times faster. See when your client has seen your invoice and put an end to guessing games. No more the check is in the mail. FreshBooks is offering a 30-day unrestricted free trial at freshbooks.com/James and enter the James Altucher Show in the How Did You Hear About Us section. That's freshbooks.com/James. If someone was listening to this and they said to themselves, well, okay, he's probably a little bit crazy and he's got a lot of money, I can't do this. How would you respond? A lot of it is just that they're afraid to get out of their comfort zone. How can someone practice getting out of their comfort zone in the ways that you've obviously practiced since you were 15 years old?
I think there's a lot of things that don't involve a lot of money to do. So, for instance, myself and my kids, we kite surfed across the English Channel. Now, learning to kite surf, all you need is a kite above your head, 5 hours lessons, and you can be up on a board and away. And you don't have to go to the expense of building a spaceship or a big hot air balloon to do your big adventures. You can you can do a swimming adventure or a kiting adventure or a surfing adventure. But even then, like for a lot of people, it's just just start step by step. If people have got find that they're vegetating a little bit, just set yourself some challenges. Every year, our family, we set ourselves a challenge. Last year we biked 2,500 kilometers from north of Italy to south of Italy. I was 66 years old. It's 100 miles a day. I'd just been injured just before it, but it's incredible how your body adjusts and gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Now, getting on a bicycle is not that expensive a thing to do, and we stayed in sort of bed and breakfasts every evening. So, you can have climbing Mount, swimming from Italy to Sicily at the end of it, and then climbing Mount Etna was not an expensive thing to do, but it was a wonderful adventure that we did as a family. So, I think setting yourself a challenge every year means that you then have to get fit to do that challenge, and that gives you another skill, another thing, and doing it with your family even better.
So I feel like kind of finding these challenges for yourself and doing them, I think, looking for problems, whether it's in the workplace or in life in general, I think sort of viewing obstacles as in a more solution-oriented way rather than just giving up on them, providing motivating vision and stories to the people around you, delegating all these is this part of this Richard Branson / Virgin process.
Yeah, and I've tried to sort of tell it in Finding My Virginity in a fun way, so people can read the book and just get some tidbits from it, but also just have a good read. I think I love getting into books which are gripping books and if you have a gripping life, then you can write a gripping book. And I think inside every single person who's listening to this, there is a book. You can tell the tales of your family, your friends, the things you picked up in life. And I think everyone should ideally try to write. It can be a short book, but a book that they can leave to their children, their grandchildren.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And look, I want to say your book is definitely a page turner. I like how you weave in and out of business to philanthropy to family, because business and life in general is hard. It's about solving problems constantly, but also, and this is the interesting thing, what comes through most to me is your happiness. And I think people in general, when they see a happy person, they think, oh, that person's crazy. Maybe talk a little bit about, was happiness something you have a baseline you've always had, or what makes you happy?
Look, I think we've been a very lucky family. My parents were fun, happy people. They were happily married. Plenty of humor at home. I'll give you one story I told in the book. I took my dad when he was 87, trekking through Africa, following the Great Migration, and we were tenting together. And I woke up one morning. I was sleeping next to him in the tent, and he had the biggest smile in his face. And I said, "Dad, you look like you had a happy dream." And he said, "Yes." I said, "Did it involve a woman?" And he said, "Yes." And so I said, "Did you misbehave with her?" And he said, "No." He said, "But she misbehaved with me outrageously." Anyway, so a lot of humor in the family. I've been lucky. I've been with the same lady for 40 years. We get on great together. She's a sexy beast still. She's reached 70 years old. She's a few years older than me. And yeah, my kids are happily married. We've got 4 lovely grandkids. So we've been lucky as a family. The fact that we've, the parents, the grandparents have, been in love, and we've and I think if the family can be bound together like that, and with our friends, and you have no reason to be unhappy. So, and that obviously only happens with 50% of families. With 50% of families, it's tougher, and people have to pick themselves up again when in broken relationships, and just do their best to get over it and get that smile back into their lives. And
How do you do that?
I think it really helps if you've got a friend or two, or some people that you really love, who you're close to, who you can lean on in those difficult moments. And if you haven't got that, then I think you need to get out and try to sort of do your absolute best to meet people. Try to do your best to find some friends and make friends. And as I say, one way is to get out and try to help other people, and through that process, you can make friends and build friendships.
Another thing is, I feel like, and I'm sure you've been told this, obviously you have enormous charisma. You have friends everywhere, friends willing to help you, and I think that's not a small part of your success. I know charisma is something that kind of almost comes from within, but is there any way someone who feels they're not as charismatic could sort of kickstart that?
Yeah, you need to make an effort at it. And I hope, I hope in my book I've sort of come up with a few sort of hints towards that. And I hope in the talk I've just given, I've come up with a few sort of directions about what people can do. People love people who are positive in life. People love people who are not negative in life. People love people who look for the best in life and look for the best in other people. And people love people who are not gossiping negatively about other people. People love people who praise you and say kind things. I think, for some people, they've got to get over some of the weak traits that maybe they inherited from their parents or their grandparents, and, try to search for the new positive themselves, and they'll get it back in bucket loads if they succeed at finding it.
And this is throughout your book. It almost seems like you're fearless in terms of taking risks. And as you point out, a lot of people associate risk with a negative connotation, but it seems like the way you view risk is solve a problem, but you need to take a risk to solve that problem, which is why it hasn't been solved, and then immediately start removing all the risks as quickly as possible. And what's your approach to removing risks? There's delegation, obviously.
Well, I mean, I've talked about the importance of protecting the downside. So, in my adventure times, when I do an adventure, obviously the downside risk is losing your life. So you try to do plan in every which way to make sure that you don't lose your life if you're going to try to be the first to cross the Atlantic in a balloon or first to climb a mountain or whatever. But the same applies to being an entrepreneur. If you start a new business, you've got to make sure that if it goes wrong, it's not going to affect your previous businesses. And so when I did the deal with Boeing all those years ago for Virgin Atlantic with one secondhand 747, they agreed to take the downside risk away by saying that they'd take the plane back at the end of 12 months.
I still can't understand how you did that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was, I had to do it because I just couldn't take the risk to put everything at risk. So, and I think the timing was lucky there as well. I think it was at a time when the airline business was in a complete slump, and they were quite glad to get the second-hand 747 off their hands. But so yeah, timing helps. Good fortune could help as well. There was one, talk about good fortune, one quite fun story I told in the book where I said to my kids when they reached 18, look, I'm going to take you to a casino, but I'm not taking you because I want you to gamble in your life. I'm taking you to teach you a lesson not to gamble. And we went to Las Vegas and I gave them $200 each, and very quickly we lost all the money on the roulette table, and then I took them to the bar and I gave them a fatherly lecture about but there we are, I've taught you a lesson. Now never come into a casino again. If you want to get involved in casinos, you can own one day, but don't ever come and spend your money in one. And as we were passing the table after the drink, everybody stood up and gave us a round of applause, and I looked at the table, and to my horror there was a massive pile of chips, and we'd left one chip on the table, and it had doubled up and doubled up and doubled up. Anyway, I went over to the table. We distributed all the chips to everybody on the table because we would never have had them if they hadn't been honest and let us know. And then my kids gave me a wry smile as we left the casino. Anyway.
but it strikes me, because I've seen this all through your book and all the stories, is that obviously there's this great love for your kids. You mention your kids in almost every single chapter, and it's beautiful, and there's great stories about it all. And it seems like where your kids most benefited was they learned from your example rather than these, quote unquote fatherly lectures.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, and I'm now learning from their example. So it's sort of what goes round comes round. I've been lucky. They're two great kids. They both wanted to prove themselves and not just be under my wing. And so my daughter went off to become a doctor, and my son went off to make films about subject matters that he felt very strongly about that could better the world. And we're very, very close. They're great kids. We've been lucky. Now, luck, by the way, does play a lot in everybody's life. I mean, you can make your own luck only to a certain extent, but you do need lucky breaks, and I've had more than my fair share of those as well.
Well, let me ask you, what's a time when you were unlucky and maybe you had to figure out how to respond to that?
Well, when we took on Coca-Cola, they had bigger tanks than us.
Yes.
and they came in and they crushed us using those that bigger firepower, and we didn't have a big enough difference in product to fight back. Whereas when British Airways attempted to crush us, we had a better product, and they couldn't crush us. And of course we ended up taking them to court and won the biggest libel damages in history when they tried to drive us out of business.
How many businesses altogether do you think you actually failed at?
I don't think a lot, because we started businesses from scratch, and we put our toe in the water. And if it didn't feel too cold, we then built it slowly but surely. If it didn't feel good, we'd just knock it on the head pretty quickly. So, but yeah, I mean, there was one fun one which was called Virgin Brides, which we failed at, and
you dressed up as a bride, by the way, in the marketing for that.
And of course, and and of course, there aren't any Virgin Brides, so there was no marketplace.
Right, no customers.
No customers. But anyway, so I mean, but we've had more successes than failures. So 50 years on, Virgin is fortunately still going strong, with us about to go to space, and we're about to launch a Virgin Voyages, a cruise company. We're just getting involved in Virgin Hyperloop, which will transport you at 700 miles an hour or 650 miles an hour on a train, and lots of exciting things going on at the moment. And sadly, I think I'm going to have to love you and leave you. It's a beautiful sunny day in San Francisco, and I'm going to better go and get, instead of talking about getting fit, I think I might go out and play some tennis.
Well, Richard Branson, author of Finding My Virginity, the new autobiography, I do really appreciate you spending the time. I've learned a lot. I'm hoping the listeners have learned a lot. I want to ask you one final question.
Yeah.
I know you play a lot of chess. I'm a ranked chess master. Next time you're in New York, let's play a game.
I'd love to, on this one. I would love to listen and learn, because I'm certainly not a ranked chess player, but I love playing it. So I look forward to it.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Richard, and good luck with the book. It's really great.
Thanks so much. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Next time on The James Altucher Show.
In America, citizens have to think about their place in history, that your place in history is not determined for you by where you're born or who your parents are, but that you make your own place in history as an American. So if you write speeches, especially for a president, your goal is not to become an expert on every subject. Your goal is to become somebody who sort of could talk about it for 5 minutes. And if you learn too much, sometimes you lose sight of what's interesting.
I want to also learn how to be a speechwriter out of this podcast.
Okay, yeah. By the end of our time together, you'll be all set with your speechwriting license. If you look at a lot of good speeches, they're either very specific personal details or big, meaningful values. One of my favorite speeches is the speech that Martin Luther King delivered the night before he was shot. He talks about surviving an assassination attempt. A deranged woman, stabbed him with a letter opener. It almost got to his heart. Doctors told him that if he had sneezed, he would have died. This got out in the press, and he got a letter from a 9-year-old white girl who said, "I just wanted to let you know I'm glad you didn't sneeze." And then he goes on this long run where he prefaces everything with saying, "I too am glad I didn't sneeze, because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been able to tell you all about a dream that I had." And so he's connecting this very, very meaningless moment, a sneeze, with these incredibly important national events.
It's almost like these things came out of nowhere. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. A few years ago, they were pennies, and now Bitcoin is over $4,000 a coin. I call these currencies choose-yourself currencies because they don't depend on any institution, any government, any bank to function. And they're just simply exploding in price right now. It's unbelievable. Some have jumped as high as 3,000%, 21,000%, and even a rare 81,000%. Again, it reminds me of things like the dot-com boom in the 90s. Stocks were going up 20, 30% a day. Everyone said it was irrational exuberance, but they kept going for another 5 years, and some of them are still going. So if you're missing out on this boom, don't worry. You're not alone. We're just in inning, I don't know if we're in inning 0 anymore, but we're in inning 1. Most people are not investing in cryptos simply because they don't even know how to get started. So I decided I want to do something about that. I want to inform everyone listening how to get started. I'm offering a free 6-video series masterclass on cryptocurrencies, where I'll walk you step by step through the entire process. If you're interested in claiming this free masterclass, please go to Altucher.io. That's Altucher.io/masterclass, where I'll give you all of the details.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power, so How do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/advance. That's oracle.com/advance. oracle.com/advance.